Awesome. I'm so excited. Welcome to Girls Guide to Greatness. Today I have a special guest. Eric Hampton is with us today. And we are actually not going to do like a regular, typical interview. I wanted to change things up and do something different because I love having these conversations with Eric. We have some of the most amazing conversations and he always gives me this great information. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people need to hear this. So I asked him if he would just have a conversation with me and share it with you all. So I'm super excited to have you, Eric.
Thank you, Rebecca, and it's a pleasure. And I too enjoy having the conversation, profound conversations that I share with you. It's always good. They say knives sharpen one another. What is it? The saying?
Oh, iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. So I always gain just as much from having conversations with you as you gain from me. So it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, just before we even went live, we came up with a really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just what happens. As soon as we get together, things just start happening.
It starts happening, right? So everybody, those of you who do not know Eric actually has been on the show before. It was with his wife, Pam Hampton, and both of them actually run Meditateology. So Meditateology is this amazing, multifaceted company where they actually help couples, singles, individuals, realign, get centered, find their purpose, find their passion. They actually help people with all sorts of different things, including communication. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about today on the show is communication, but not just any communication. We want to learn how to strengthen our communication to help reduce any kind of confusion, conflict, and chaos. And this subject really is interesting to me because as an entrepreneur, I'm always like looking for ways to improve my communication, improve it with entrepreneurs, with my partners, with my team members, with my clients, and with my customers. I've noticed that my communication, especially around money and around asking for the sale, has definitely gotten better over the past year. But I think, to be honest with you, I need a little bit more practice in that area. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other people out there who are probably thinking the same things. So I'm excited to talk to you about this, Eric, because not just how we can better our communication with our partners and our family and all that great stuff, but also how we can actually strengthen our communication within our businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we, with Pam and I, communication is at the forefront of everything that we do. Even in the relationships, I've often said that communication is more important to love. And I know that was like a big to everyone, to certain people, but I understand love and communication has to work hand in hand. You can love someone, and I've often said you can love someone so much that it ends up having you slashing tires and throwing bricks to windows, all because you didn't know how to communicate with the person. And you say, or you can love someone so much that you break up and you're still talking about that person and how much you love them after the breakup, So to me, it's the glue that makes everything work. And we associate that in relationships often, but very few people know that communication is the glue that makes everything work as far as us being able to operate in humanity and society and things of that nature. When it comes to, like you're saying, work, can you get along with your coworkers? Can you get along with your boss? Can you get along with your friends and family? And the communication is the glue that makes that happen. And I often say it's not even just being able to communicate, because oftentimes people say, "Oh, I tell them all the time." I'm not afraid to talk, but it's effective communication. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Just telling somebody what's on your mind, because is it effective? How are you actually relaying that message to the person? Do they feel like you're hearing them? Is there an even exchange in that communication?
Eric, you mentioned something because you have to be aware of how they're receiving it. That other party across from you, how are they actually receiving it? Because I think I have an issue with that sometimes where I feel like I'm communicating very well on my side, but the way how they're hearing it is definitely something different. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it that way,
And that gets to being patient. It also begins. It's a level of maturity, and I often you have to kind of like tap dance around that word maturity, because most people don't want to hear that they're immature. But part of the maturity is understanding your point isn't the most important point all the time. It's
Mhm.
understanding that the person you're trying to communicate has a perspective, and their perspective to them is just as important as your perspective is. And so, how do you show value in both sides and show value to that person? Say, I hear you, and it starts by listening, in quality listening and effective listening first, and then the maturity is not trying to hammer in your point, but how you approach it in a way where you can put yourself in that person's perspective and try to have a win-win in the communication. And and the fact of the matter is, everybody's not going to communicate as like you would like. Everybody's not going to be as open and honest as you would like. But it has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with how you approach every given situation. And that's why I say mature comes in, stepping back, being able to be patient, being able to see things outside of what you want out of the deal, and see, well, how can I make sure that this information gets uh, get communicated without you feeling like you're losing at the same time. Oftentimes when we're trying to communicate, if someone's not listening, then we just say, forget it. I don't want to. I just, or they just say, that he's not listening or she's not listening, and then you just give up, and that's not effective communication. That's just leaving the whole attempt to communicate. And I think that when people do that often, people just say, I don't want to deal with it, and they just bail out. And it's because they don't know how to deal with it. And so this is what we're talking about in this. When I'm thinking about someone, if I'm having a conversation I need to have with an employee, because I have an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, we have employees. And it's a difficult conversation. I want to put myself in their perspective, from their perspective. A, their boss is coming to talk to them. B, their boss is going to say something they don't want to hear. How can you communicate it in a way, let them know why it's important that we have this conversation, right? I don't want to be the boss that people fear. I want to be the boss that people can respect and say, hey, I understand why Eric's coming at me about this particular issue. So I communicate that to them. I tell them, hey, we're in this together. I'm not trying to come at you in a way, where it sounds like this is this is why I'm approaching this. Can you meet me? What can I do so that we can work to make
So Eric, you're actually, before you even go into the subject at hand or the topic, you're actually letting him know, hey, this is what I like that. I think that I might have to use that a little bit more, because I don't think I really explain sometimes why I'm approaching someone, especially if it's bad news.
It's a prep. It's a prep. And, like if you're cooking, you got to prep before you actually get into the baking, And I think the prep has to be consider, have the other party in mind. You don't just prep like, all right, I'm gonna do this, and then people prep to do a dissertation or a speech or something like that. But that's all about you. Even Tony Robbins said one time that whenever he goes somewhere and he's going to speak to an audience, or someone's going to pay him big bucks to speak to somebody to transform a company, like the Golden State Warriors. I think he coached them one time, and they're already a championship team. So how do you come in and coach the champions, right? And then what he said is you have to actually go in first and see what are the things, or put yourself in their perspective. What is the things that they might be looking for, wanting, or expecting that you can show them? I'll give it to you. I can make that happen. So you're not going in and say, I want to do this. You're saying, what is it that they want? And put yourself from there. It's like you're shifting the chair. I like this little chair I'm in because I can shift. Like you're shifting around, and you're becoming the party you want to speak to. And that takes some imagination. It takes getting out of self, because also we have to remember, and this is part of maturity part too, that we all have our own personal experiences we went through in life that has shaped the way we see things. So if I was born poor in the projects and you was born on a yacht club somewhere, we may not see the same situation the same way. You know, if I was and this is I'm using extremes, but if I always had something handed to me, or if I worked hard and I always had to come work hard, and that someone else didn't, they may just see things differently. Or if they work hard in a different way, maybe my perspective of working hard was always being able to control things and tell people what to do and this and that. And somebody else's perspective of working hard was get your hands dirty and get down in it. And you know, and so our perspectives are always different. So and then if you add in different personalities with different perspectives, and you're the leader or you're trying to communicate that from a business point of view, you don't know which perspective or which personality you're talking to. And you have to be patient, and you have to kind of like address it in a way, especially if you're doing one-on-one communication. But if you're doing group communication, you can be pretty general with the consideration of an employee versus an employer perspective. But if you're talking to someone one-on-one, and you're starting to see the conversation is not actually going the way you want, then you got to kind of like start to ask them. You got to start to ask them, well, tell me something about it. You know, how are you feeling? And I had that situation happen. I'm thinking about a particular employee now, where I was talking to him, and everything I was saying, he was getting angry, and he was getting more angry. And it was the opposite of what I want. I was trying to show the guy that I was there for him, and I'm trying to help him. And everything I was saying was just getting him more upset. And you could see the body language, and he was starting to shuffle in his chair, and it was like, whoa. And I had to stop and say, wait a minute. I'm not effectively communicating to him. And the only way I could fix that was I had to stop and tell him what I was seeing. And I was like, employee A, I'm obviously I'm not communicating to you in a way that sounds or feels right to you. I said, can you please share with me what is it that it seems like you're getting upset? Can you share with me what it is that you're thinking? And I'm gonna stop talking for a minute. I just want to listen. You know, and then he starts telling me, and then as he started telling me, I'm actually assessing his perspective. I'm taking in, okay, so I'm seeing it this way, but that's not what I meant. But I see how he's seeing it, and I'm saying, all right, now we can talk. Now we can say, employee A, all right, I understand. Defense. If you're mature, you don't go into a defense mechanism. You go into an understanding mechanism. You go into humans or beings are so dynamic. We're wonderfully different, and we have to just accept that. And oftentimes we say we do, but when it's time to communicate how we think something should be done, we don't accept the difference.
Sometimes it has to do with our egos, Eric. I know that sometimes our ego will get in the way because we don't want to show that we don't know enough, or we might, make a mistake or something like that, because we're putting ourselves in a position of where we could become, we could look like a failure, or we could be rejected, or we're not smart enough. And so it's almost like, we're kind of like scared. Yeah, we're protecting. Yeah.
We're going into our own defense mechanism. We're trying to protect our own self, our own ego, our own fear. And that fear is, and we know that fear is such a powerful thing. Fear creates what I call irrational behavior. And irrational behavior leads to emotional behavior. Well, fear creates emotion, which leads to irrational behaviors, which leads to undesirable outcomes. And so fear is at the base of a lot of reasons why wars are started, why racism exists, why people can't get along across religions, why people. It's fear. It's fear. And fear tells us that what you're saying about being less than or not being enough or trying, that's fear. Why do we care what someone else thinks? It only matters what we think within ourselves. I'm writing a poem too about that.
So Eric, I have so for me, it's like when I have not, okay, so it's a tough subject. If there's a tough subject to talk about, for instance, I'll give you guys for instance, Because now that I'm fully my own boss, I've never really been that before. I've always been the corporate worker bee. Someone else has always told me what to do in the corporate world. And even though I had my own teams under me and that sort of thing, it was more guided. I was more like of a guider and I was a leader, basically, not really the true boss, if that makes any sense. But Eric, I know you've been an actual boss. You've been an employer. And so that's when I was really interested in talking to you about this subject, because I really want to be able to be forthcoming in my communication when it comes to working with certain clients that might be a little tough to work with. For instance, like you were mentioning your employer A, I've got client A over here, and all my clients are amazing. But I had this one particular client issue where we had agreed upon a price, but I wasn't getting the price. I wasn't getting the full payment. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this has never happened. And so again, I could see myself. I immediately went into retreat mode, and I felt like I wasn't strong enough to, address the situation. I was scared to address the situation because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and I didn't want the situation to get out of hand. I wanted to keep, like you said, almost like you were mentioning before, kind of like a nice, calm, I didn't want anybody to get hurt. I didn't want any, flames to be flying around or anything like that. So can you give me any tips, like, on how to continue to build up my confidence and my communication when I have situations like that? Because they're going to come up again sooner or later. So whether it be payment or something else, where I have to kind of address these tough situations and let them know, hey, this is what needs to be done, or whatever.
Absolutely. And that's a wonderful, wonderful question. And I've actually had, for everybody who's worked with me before, as far as my employees, I've had, not to pat myself on the back, but they've always said, Eric, we've really been, I had people tell me, you're the best employer I've ever worked for. And then I've had people tell me, I'm amazed. I learned so much. Like, I had guys who went off and started their own business. And I've had vendors that work for me that said, Eric, the one thing that we notice about you is that you always manage to stay calm no matter what's the situation, right?
You are a calm person.
Yeah. And if you knew the old me, no, I used to be a boxer and a street fighter. But yeah, a long ways from that. But it was in the evolution, and the evolution came with, as you're saying, building up your self-confidence, and then checking to what I believe in. And this is so important. And we're both spiritual people, so I can go here with you. When we oftentimes, and I watched the show yesterday, which was profound. It had all the big heavy hitters on there: Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza.
My favorites.
and I cannot remember the show. I was trying to find the name of the show, but it was talking about energy, and it was talking about our ability to heal ourselves from sickness. And I'm really into that. As you know, I study Reiki, and I'm a Reiki master, and that I'm all about energy and quantum physics and stuff. So getting back to what you're saying about this from a higher conscious spiritual perspective, we are all interconnected beings, and we're all here to serve in some way. And I had to remember that's like, when you start to remember this, you start to remember that everybody don't know that yet, and everybody is there's people trying to navigate through this world, and they're kind of flying blind. But my spiritual connection to something higher allows me to stay rooted when things feel uncomfortable. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that your belief is everything, whether you're Christian, Buddhism, Hinduism, or atheist, or just spiritual. You have that belief has to be a foundation for you to say, when I feel the waters are getting shaky, let me settle down in my belief. And that belief gives you what I call a solid foundation. That solid foundation allows you to express yourself from a place of peace, because my belief is that the universe always operates in my good, and that there is nothing, even the things that come across that are challenging, it is for either a lesson or for my development. And so if I do that and I don't allow my emotions, or woe is me, why is this happening?
Mhm.
If I don't allow that to take, but I fall back into the belief like, okay, this is a difficult situation here, or it's a perceived difficult situation, and let me watch and see how I can help this to unfold in this greater good. And you're right. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be undesirable outcomes, but
Right.
then those undesirable outcomes always have a good side to the coin. And it's all,
Mhm.
whether it be a lesson learned, or whether it be a growth opportunity, a relationship building, perspective, being able to see what types of clients. I remember Dean and Tony telling me one time, as you can see, I follow Dean and Tony a lot, but they said something about being selective about the clients you choose. And
That's
and
good.
and it all money is not good money. And
That's true.
and we have to know when to say it doesn't matter if you're paying me $300,000 to
Right. Oh,
um
Eric, on that note, oh my gosh, it's so funny that you say this because my lesson learned from that particular situation actually caused me to look at how I was setting up my programs to begin with, how I was to learn how to anticipate my clients' needs a little bit more and get very clear about how to get them set up in the beginning, how to communicate with them during the process, and even how to end it. So it really made me take a step back to really look at all of like how I was delivering, my communication, how I was delivering my program, and then I was thinking to myself, okay, so what kind of people do I want to work with, and how many different projects that I really want to do. So at the end of 2020, that's exactly what I did. I kind of revamped my business a little bit, and guess what? In 2021, I've had amazing client after amazing client, no issues, no worries, and it's been on point. So just because of that lesson learned from that one instance.
and that is exactly my point. And once you know this, and here's the kicker that gets me. We can have these experiences and we can say, wow, what a lesson. And then we can even start to tell everybody, this is great, this is a lesson. But it doesn't mean when the next time comes that you're going to totally forget and then and get back into a, oh my God, why is this happening mode again, right? But
Yeah.
the strength is, or the evolution of us as human beings and on the spiritual path is about how soon do you recognize and get back onto what we know from a higher conscious way. What I love about you, Rebecca, and more people like you is because we're good at heart and we know that in the nature of our being that we're here to help.
Yes.
And we want to make money, and nobody in this world don't want to make money, but it's not by any means necessary, and is it with service in mind, and how can we help the world to be a better place through our efforts and actions, right? And to being that at the top of the line, so that's why we can say all money's not good money. It's not by any means necessary. And if an opportunity comes up where we can learn how to deal with someone who doesn't want to pay, doesn't want to communicate, or not interested in delivering equal exchange of goods and services, which is,
Right.
if I'm giving you all that you paid me for, you should pay me for what I'm giving you. That's an equal exchange of goods and service. And
Right.
if we find someone not in that, then you learn from that. You learn that how to deal with, and how to, like you say, you revamp your business approach. You revamp how you address the issue, because communication is so important. Like you said, you have to take ego out. You have to say, and fear. You have to take fear and ego out. And fear is not. Some people say, "Oh, I don't like to deal with confrontation," and so I just let it go. Well, that's not what communication is. Communication isn't about confrontation. Communication is about being able to stand your ground in such a way that you feel like the party heard what you were saying, and you heard what the party was saying, and then you make an educated decision about whether or not to proceed further.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't have to give or back up from what you stand. But you also want to know that while I'm telling this person where I stand, am I receiving and hearing everything the other person is saying too? Or
Right.
am I trying to make sure that their opinion is just as important as mine? And am I letting them know that, and if they're honestly good people that just want to be heard from their perspective, and you show them, all right, I get it. With employee A, when I was talking to him, and I was like, it seems like you're getting more and more upset. I said, so maybe it's me, maybe it's the way I'm talking to you. I said, because I'm not here to try to get you upset. I'm here to try to communicate with you. So tell me something, tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what's going on, and I'll be quiet and listen. The employee started telling me, and before it was over and done with, we were laughing and hugging.
Yeah.
Well, it was going one way, and he was like, man, Eric, thank you. He's like, you're the best. And he's like,
I love that.
And that's taking that moment to read. That's why I don't often like to be a texter or an emailer. Now that we're in the middle of COVID, if you don't want to FaceTime me, or you don't want to Zoom, or you don't want to do any of that, and we're talking serious business, I kind of have a problem with it. If it's just because I need to be able to read body languages,
Yeah.
I need to see your expressions. I don't want an emoji. I want to, not when there's an exchange of goods and services.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if we can't meet in person, in person would be my first choice. If not, then second choice is we're gonna have to, at some point in time, we got to see each other, and we got to communicate the serious business, the hard conversation,
right,
the face, so I can see and read. Because what we get is our subconscious projects out more than what our voice projects, and so you can say, "Oh, I'm fine," but if your subconscious does this,
yeah,
that I can see that, and I can say, listen, it's how I got married to my wife. Actually, I asked her. We don't want to go too far, but I asked my wife was actually engaged to someone else when I met her, and I said, "How's the wedding plans coming?" And she was like, "Okay," and I was like, "Oh,
red flag."
right, yes." But if she just texts me, everything's great, I would have no idea, But if I see the pause, if I see the body language, and I literally started trying to help her build her relationship and her whole engagement, and it just led to it wasn't the right fit for her, which worked in our favor because now, 17 years later, we're still together.
I like it. So can we do a quick overview, Eric? Because we got into some really good stuff, and I was actually taking notes. And I think I just came up with another idea for you and your business. By the way, we'll have to talk about that offline because I got a really cool idea by this. So let's just recap real quick, guys. So number one, to help improve our communication, we need to prepare for the conversation and really seek to understand their perspective, right? To really view it from their perspective is number one, to prepare to really be looking at from their point of view. And number two, I really thought this was a good one, is to be grounded in your faith so that you are seeking to be patient and calm, take a deep breath, and just know that everything is going to be okay. It's going to be steady and good. I love that. I think that was one thing I did miss. Even though I prayed about the situation, I don't think I really took the time to really sit down and be grounded in that faith. Mm-hmm. And number three, ask questions and seek for them to be understood. So basically ask questions and pull out exactly how they're feeling, what are their emotions, what are their thoughts, really understand them first, and instead of trying to be understood. Mm-hmm. And then I like this last one, is to basically try at all times to, if you're talking about hard issues, or if you're talking about money or anything like that, to actually do this kind of conversation in person or like via Zoom versus just a text message or something in email. So mm-hmm. I really think that those are really great tips that we can take away and start using right away. That's awesome. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Human connectedness is the one thing that we are, the COVID is really affecting a lot because people don't understand, social distancing the mask, all of that is taken away from one of the things that really makes us empathetic to others, make us sympathetic to others, and when you're being poured away, it kind of it's indirect, it's subconscious. It's kind of like when you're being isolated from the crowd, you feel a certain way whether you are not used to that or not. Even if you're a loner, if you're a type of person that prefer to be alone, just knowing that you can go into a store and you can go get some necessities, because everybody has to have an exchange of goods at some point. You can't be a loner and not buy some food from somewhere, and that someone's got to sell it to you, and somebody, so there's always an exchange, even if you prefer to be to yourself. But then most of us do not prefer. Most of us enjoy the company of interaction, and it feeds on what makes life and living what living is all about. And so if you know that, and you know that there's this exchange, and we're connected energetically, which is science. That's quantum physics. That's what I love about it, because quantum physics kind of like merges science and religion, and it kind of shows, how there's an energy and everything. It's from the cells you break down. We're all just vibrating energy, and made from the same type of energy. The only thing that truly separates us from a spiritual perspective is our consciousness, our ability to identify me as me and you as you. And science can't explain where that comes from, the conscious mind. So enters God, but knowing that, having the wisdom of knowing that we are connected, and there is a greater intelligence that drives this whole operation that we call our life, our friends' lives. The turn of the seasons, and I'm looking at palm trees outside my window. I love it, but I'm seeing them blow, and I'm seeing there's a dance. I'm seeing the dance of the winds in the water, and I'm seeing an intelligence that I have nothing to do with. What makes your heart beat on time every time? What makes you breathe in on time every time? And I'm seeing that communication of an intelligence beyond what I can think, and so. If I'm thinking about that, I'm connected with that, and I'm trying to communicate something to someone, I got to see them as the oneness of me, as something, as an extension of me, and a different expression of me, but still the oneness in all. And so that takes away the fear. It helps takes away the judgment. It helps take away, it's just an understanding, an observation, oh, here I am, I have to commit. And even for yourself, the lower self-esteem, because many of people who suffer from low self-esteem, and they don't know it. And the first chance you get to come down on yourself, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done it, or maybe this is not, I'm outside. The first chance you get is coming in. That's that little devil in the backside of you saying, you really think you this good? You really think you deserve that? And you have to be like, get off, go on. And, but everybody has it. Everybody has it, and you have to work with that. I think it's actually placed on us intentionally as that challenge to help us to evolve, and have to have it. I mean, you're just gonna know it.
Because because I'm a follower of Tony as well, and I've taken several of his courses, and I want to become what he challenges us to be, a master communicator, a master of our emotions, a master at our communication, a master of our money. I love that, becoming a master. And what that really means is, like he was saying, what is it? You have to basically practice the stuff day in and day out. It becomes a habit, but the only way it becomes a habit is if you practice it. And so that's why I'm seeking to become better in my communication. I want to become better because to be honest with you, it's almost and not just to become better to help other people, but also to really be understood better, because I really want people to understand me a little bit better. And especially with me doing podcasts and doing programs, and hopefully later on being on TV and doing all kinds of other cool stuff, I really do want to get better at being a good communicator. So I'm going to start practicing a lot more and paying attention and being very, I guess, intentional about the way I speak. And especially, like you said, when it comes to those harder issues, and really paying attention, not just to the way I'm wording things, but my emotional level, my spiritual level, all that's all connected. So, and really paying attention to how the person in front of me is perceiving what I'm saying as well. So paying attention to all these little indicators is a good thing to do. A lot of smart stuff we talked about today. Eric obviously is the wise guru and all this stuff and bringing a lot of.
Can I share one last thing? I want to share one quick thing. And what you're saying about Tony and being a master of communication, I thought the thought came to me, especially when it comes to self-esteem, and because self-esteem has a lot to do with ineffective communication as well. Learning to be okay with the way you are as you are. I call it being perfect in your imperfections. So therefore, you accept your imperfections and still see the perfection in all of that. As human beings, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn. We're going to evolve. We don't judge it, though. See, we're perfect as we are with our imperfections. And that is it's something we have to learn to accept, not to be so hard on ourselves. Because we're evolving, we're learning, and we're growing. And as we're doing that, we're about to be fluid. We have to flow with the laws of the universe and let the way. That's the thing about water. Be flowing like flowing water. That's a Buddhist statement. Live our lives and flow like flowing water. Flowing water can't be stopped. When it starts to flow, if something comes in the way, you drop a rock in front of it, it just goes around. It goes over.
Yeah.
It just keeps flowing.
And it's kind of funny you say that, because when I was in those instances of where I felt uncomfortable or awkward, thank goodness it didn't last long, because I try to not stay in those moments. And so I'm like, okay, let me feel it. Let me acknowledge it. Okay. Like you said, I made a mistake. How can I get better at this? So I allowed myself to go through that emotional, whatever that is, but then I don't stay there. I always ask the next question. All right, Rebecca, how can I make sure this doesn't happen again? Or how can I improve upon this? So I think that's what every entrepreneur needs to be asking themselves, and even every spouse and parent as well. I'm a parent. I used to be married, and so I've been through every relationship you can think of. But I wish I had really paid more attention back in the day, to like all these tips that we're learning now. But that's okay. It's okay. I didn't know it then. I know it now. Absolutely. And I'm going to move forward with more confidence and more courage. I love that.
Absolutely.
Eric, thank you so much for being with us. This is so much fun. We're going to actually have this on replay on YouTube as well as on the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. So make sure you re-listen to this later on. Share it with your friends. People need to hear more information like this, to have it more in their lives, to get better with every day, and to just really, like you said, Eric, enjoy the process. Have fun with this and be okay with who you are. Embrace every part of you full-heartedly and move forward with confidence and courage, and know that you have coaches here to help you. Eric, how can we reach you? How can people actually reach out to you if they have questions?
You can reach out to me at Meditateology. It's meditateology.com. And you can reach out to me on Facebook at Meditateology as well. And we're always open to just being there for people. This is what we do. My wife and I, we love what we do. It's just amazing. It's just amazing to be in this moment in this time.
Absolutely. Hey, that's our sign off. That's our key. Cue. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome.
Okay.